You know what app I use on my phone more than any other app besides the podcast app to listen to this here podcast? I use onX. onX Maps is the most comprehensive mapping system for hunters on the market today. I use it all the time. When I was in New Mexico, I was looking at 40,000 acres of ranch that I needed to learn. I flip open onX and just start studying the map. When I'm riding trails, I put the tracking app on. It helps me get around in strange country. I could mark water sources, food sources, bear sign, just all kinds of options within onX. You need to check out onX Maps by going to houndsmanxp.com. Click on the link on our sponsor page. You'll go right to onX Maps, and when you check out, enter the code HXP20 and you will get 20% off of your order. Know where you stand with onX. Check out Cajun Lights, your complete dog hunting outfitter. Tracking equipment, leashes, collars, dog supplies, and much, much more. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. And don't forget their outstanding lineup of lights. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. Elite nutrition products are the hottest thing on the market right now for dog and horse owners. And Houndsman XP is a dealer. You can find all their products on our website at houndsmanxp.com. Over the past 5 years, you've tuned into this podcast, and I don't take it lightly. We have built a mutual trust. And when I recommend a product, it's because I believe in it, I use it, and I'm given my seal of approval for that. I'm putting my name on that. And with Elite Nutrition products, I do trust it. I do use it. I've seen great results with their essential dogs, their pre and probiotics, their tick-borne disease treatment. It's all natural. It's a great alternative to pharmaceuticals when used appropriately. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition. Available from houndsmanxp.com.
So I let him feed on it, and it was so small. It was a baby, so he was able to fly away with it. And so I spent at least the next couple of hours crawling through cactus and just basically chasing him around and calling Amy like, "What do I do now?" You know. Yes, so that's one of my fond memories. And I probably still have some cactus in my legs. I'm pulling out once in a while, but that was a really good experience. And I feel like for my first catch, and also being such a disaster, that I'll never forget it. But I did get the bird home, and that is in the end, it's a win, right?
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And this episode was one that I was very happy to be able to get coordinated and make happen. I'd been talking with Jen off and on for, I think it was, maybe the last few years or so now. It seems like it's not been that long, but I guess it has now I think about it. But I met Jen whenever I was going to see one of my friends play in one of my favorite metal bands back at Sonic Temple. I think it was, at least 2 or 3 years ago now. But anyway, I was introduced to Jen and was happy to be able to finally meet her, because I had heard that she had just recently gotten into falconry, and she's still very young in the sport and still learning a lot. And part of the reason why I was excited to talk to her is, she's definitely kind of taken a little bit of the road less traveled in her early experiences in falconry. She's faced a lot of early adversity and had to deal with also some different medical issues and things like that. But I was really excited to have her on, because she's definitely proof that if there's a will, there's a way. And if you really want to do something, then you can definitely pull it off if you really want to make it happen. But all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to this conversation that I had with Jen Keenan, and I hope you all enjoy it and get something out of it. Like I said, she's still learning a lot, but I think that she's got a bright future in the sport. So As a side note, she was also very kind and followed through with sending some samples from some of the wonderful beverages that they produce. I particularly like the meads that she sent. They kind of helped me get through the holiday season, particularly Christmas this past year, and I really 10 out of 10 would recommend you should give them a try. So you'll hear about that later towards the end of the episode, but in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to this conversation with Jen Keenan, and enjoy. Here we go. Jen, I really appreciate you taking the hour or so to talk to me today. I know you're a very busy person, a lot of irons and a lot of different fires. So thank you. And so I mean, out of curiosity, I have kind of been wondering about this leading up to this conversation. This is one I figured would be kind of fun because we both kind of semi live with like a foot in a lot of different worlds and everything, and have a lot of different stuff to juggle. I mean, what does a typical day look like for you? I mean, you guys have so much stuff going on over there. I'm just curious.
Well, thanks first for having me.
Sure.
I never expected to be on a Falconry podcast. Actually, I don't know that I have a typical day. I guess I am focusing a lot right now on the new cafe. Yeah, so I'm probably spending most of my time there. I get up super early, take my kid to school, and just spend as much time as I can there. And then, of course, now it's falconry season, so I'm dipping out as early as I can.
Is the cafe specializing in anything in particular?
Coffee roasting and vinyl still. I mean, it's basically the Pussifer store. We just rebranded and moved it. So we have all the fun stuff that the store had in Jerome. It's just more accessible. We added a full cafe, the extended menu, and roasting the coffee right on site.
Nice. So how long of a, just being a very, I've kind of dipped into that small business owner pool a little bit, a couple of times, the podcast here, just a matter of recently being one of those times. And luckily pretty much like my studio here and other stuff's on my property. I have my own building that it's in, so on and so forth. I've never had to deal with all of the fun little challenges and quirks that come with like actually having, on-site and off-site business locations, all that kind of stuff. And especially with something like that, I mean, how much of a pain was it for you? Was it a decent transition for you with that stuff, or?
Yeah, it was. Well, it took a little bit longer to move and set up because I underestimated how much stuff we have. And construction has taken a little bit longer, as always, right? But it's been really good because it's kind of given us phases to adjust to the new spot and see what works and what doesn't. And now we're still waiting for the final phase of the full kitchen. We've been working out of the food truck since then, since the move. And so that's coming up really soon. I do a lot of like the website stuff too. We've just split off the Queen Bee Vinyl Cafe website, which is the store. And now we're doing a Pussifer TV and then a pussifer.com, which is more band based, and trying to get people to understand all those different areas is a challenge. And then, I can't really focus on that at work. At the cafe, I have to do all that in the evenings.
Oh man. Yeah. The whole, branding and rebranding and, like I said, also having recently experienced that myself too, I can somewhat, at least slightly empathize with, kind of, how much of a pain that can be too. And getting, it's funny. You can tell people like 1,000,000 times, but they need to be told like 1,000,001 before they before they fully receive, the message, sometimes even more. And And so, yeah, I don't know, like dealing with just the normal stuff is, as far as running a business, obviously I don't have to tell you is can be a nightmare sometimes, juggling all that in and of itself. And let alone having to move and everything else. But it's a venue too, right?
Yes. Yes and no.
Yes and no.
It is, but it's in the store, so it's not like a separate space. And so we basically just move the vinyl racks out of the way and set up a stage and have bands.
Nice.
It's an amazing venue. It's nice because it's such a intimate space. And so we've been lucky to get some not huge bands, but like Cavalera's getting ready to play in February, and they don't play small venues like that anymore. So being that close for the same price or maybe even less as a normal ticket somewhere else, like you're right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, having been in lots of different musical situations, since I was, as young as like 14, 15 years old, I've pretty much played almost every, how it is, especially whenever you grow up in the world of rock and metal. It's just like, oh, you want to come play my basement? Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You want to come play my friend's bathroom? Oh, okay. Whatever. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. It seems like, anytime you can get a gig, especially as like a metal or a rock musician, whenever you have no foundation whatsoever, it's just like, the actual definition of that meme that was just like, spending $10,000 on equipment to, to turn around and then pay hundreds of dollars in gas to drive to a venue you're getting paid $50 for, if that. And it's just like, wow. I mean, I wonder how they even got paid $50. So, I mean, but ironically enough, though, those smaller venues like that were some of my favorite ones to play, just for that reason that you described. I mean, people are right up in your face. They're always like more into it. Just a lot more interpersonal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we hear also from the bands that play there. Yeah, and I think that they just want something different too, playing. I mean, I'm seeing more like people playing Taco Bell parking lot and convenience stores. Like, I think they're just looking for something a little bit different that keeps it unique.
It doesn't surprise me. I do respect, though, the people that really try, especially like the small venues. I mean, there were so many of them that died during the evil C word era. From 2020, of course, to 2022, there were so many small venues that shut down and everything. And I'm glad to see that people like yourself are at least trying to provide some kind of alternate space or setting. And, I mean, that kind of spot is really perfect for like a small to a mid-level touring band, to come through. And I mean, and it's hard to find places to route to, especially, in your neck of the woods and everything. So,
yeah. Yeah. And there's not much in this area, especially for young people. So having a daughter growing up and becoming the age of where she wants to go out and do stuff, it's important to foster a community that they're not just sitting in Sonic parking lot, or something like that. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what kind of setting you grew up in or whatever, but I know for me growing up in a very small rural town, I mean, really the only thing there is to do is drink, do drugs, listen to music, play video games, whatever, and so, I mean, that's awesome that you're trying to build that though. But anyway, I mean, as far as everything else goes though, I mean, with you being, so busy with so many different things and as you've probably heard, because I know you occasionally listen, as well. I really like talking to people about what they have to deal with on the daily, because obviously that plays such a huge role and it's a big influence on, our falconry and, everything that we have to deal with, just making time for it. And, I mean, what are you kind of trying to mainly go for these days?
Cottontail and jacks.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. So, you're mainly just you're flying a Harris right now, correct?
Yes.
Cool.
Female.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is a passage bird too, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I just trapped her September.
Okay. And as far as that goes, I mean, whenever you started off in falconry, you were flying a captive bred Harris, right?
Yes.
All right. And was that one that I can't remember. Bring me up to date here. I might as well just go ahead and turn the reins over to you. And I guess this would be as good a time as any to just kind of give a quick synopsis on what, because you're relatively new in this still, correct?
Yes, I'm in my first year of general.
Okay.
And I really feel like I am kind of my first even though I've done 2 years of apprenticeship, the captive bred Tiercel I had had some behavioral issues. And I spent most of my time addressing those and trying to figure out how to stop them so he could hunt. I would get about 2 weeks of hunting with him, and then the rest of the time I'm on the sidelines. So I kind of feel like I'm really in my first year. And I guess you're always learning, right? But yeah, this has been a whole different game, and it's really fun. The first 2 years was just kind of, I loved it, but it was very frustrating because I just kept thinking like, what am I doing wrong? And also not seeing a lot of game on the times I was able to go out. And the last season, my sponsor was nice enough to trade me birds so that I would get a decent hunting season, but again, just not seeing a lot. And this year, like, I've probably seen more rabbits in these couple of months than I did all the last couple seasons.
It really makes or breaks everything. Yeah, it really does. I mean, if you don't have the prey base, then it's just kind of like you might as well just go ahead and hang it up until you can find it. It's like it's such an important part. It's like, honestly, probably, if not the most important part, right up there, equal to the most important aspects of what we do with this stuff. I mean, if you don't have a prey base to hunt, then it's like you're just gonna pull your, if I had hair to pull out, I'd pull it out for sure. And but yeah, I mean, I've heard though that there's been some places that have had issues with drought, not as much rain, all that kind of stuff, and basically, I know that whenever I was down there visiting, gosh, it's probably been almost a couple years ago now, somewhere in there, 1.5 to 2 years. Anyway, they'd said that they had, I guess, a little bit more rain and the jack numbers were kind of coming back up and stuff. But I'm glad that those numbers are, I mean, it just, gosh, if you don't have that, it just sucks. So what, out of curiosity, I mean, elaborate a little bit on some of the behavioral issues that you were having to deal with those first couple seasons.
He would shred his flight feathers completely, and not like his chest. It was all the wing, his wings, all the way up to the
primaries and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I tried every kind of enrichment, and I did take him to a vet, and they told me that it was West Nile virus. And so for a while, for like a year, I was treating it as that and thinking that was what was working. But then I got hooked up with a really good raptor vet out of Tucson. And so he actually was like, I mean, maybe it was West Nile at one point, but that's not what's the problem. And he, finally told me, like, you may not ever be able to solve that problem, especially with a captive bred. And so I've had some really good falconers, met some very nice falconers that have been encouraging, and also just like, not wanting to tell me like, give up that bird, but at the same time, just like, you're really just doing husbandry. You're not doing falconry, and there's so much more there for you if you'll just give up that bird.
And yeah, no, I understand though, because as apprentices, especially, we joke about it all the time. It's like you trap your first bird, and your experience is a little different, of course. Getting into it and everything, but it's like as an apprentice, you trap say your first red tail, for example, and it's like no other bird in the world exists but that bird. Like you can't possibly fly any different bird because that's the only one that exists. You might not get another one, even though you can literally drive down the road and trap another one in another 20 minutes or whatever, but but that's the mentality that we have whenever we're green. We don't, understand kind of the dynamics of how all that stuff works. And we're just so eager to be in it. Right. And, but, it's interesting that you talk about that though. Cause and I'm glad that you did decide to eventually move on, because I do agree with, the sentiments of the other falconers that you talk to about that, because I mean, your first 2 seasons are such a good foundation of where you're going to grow from, and if your first 2 seasons just suck because you're spinning your wheels with a problem bird, I mean, it all goes back to juice. I can't say it enough. It's always juice versus squeeze. And you start learning that whole ratio a lot better the more time goes on. But it sounds like you had a good initial lesson in juice versus squeeze.
Definitely. And, I mean, it actually was good for me because part of the reason I think I got a captive bred was my friend that got me into this. She was helping me. If you don't know, I had cancer, and I got into it because once I beat it, I was just like, instead of dreaming about being a falconer, like, I'm just going to do it. And kind of puts, life into perspective. So I was given this captive bred as a gift, I think, as kind of helping me fast track and helping part of my healing. And so I don't see it as a waste, even though it was not the falconry you picture. Also because, there's the dispatching part of the hunt that I wasn't really aware of when I got into it. And I mean, I knew because I'd gone out before she was my sponsor, Amy had taken me out just so I would know. But at the same time, it's like, that's a hard part for me because I'm such an animal lover. Mm-hmm. And I mean, not that falconers aren't, but, I think part of that is why I kept low-key so long is because, when you get on the pet side, when you get an animal, when you adopt an animal, you're supposed to keep it forever, right? And and I know falconry is different; they're not pets, but you got to separate that in your mind, and then you have to separate the whole. You're feeding this bird; it's not, and I'm not a hunter either, so it's like you're feeding this. The dispatching is like you're feeding this bird, and so there's that part of the falconry that I've had to really wrap my head around. And so it's been good to have a slow start so that I can comprehend all that on top of all the healing I was having to do.
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate that too, because I had no hunting background either when I got into this. The guys that I got into this with expected me just to fall flat on my face and just fail. Mm-hmm. They thought, they didn't take me seriously at all. I think sometimes they still don't, but anyway, that's a different topic of conversation entirely. But no, I understand. Like, I didn't know how to dispatch a rabbit when I got into this. I didn't know. That's why I think it's so important, and it's been said many times, especially when I've been doing these recordings with so many people. It's like, that's why it's so important for people to really get out for as much of a full season as they can, really, and just kind of watch, observe, learn, and truly understand what they're getting into. Yes. Because you are there's some gritty sides of this stuff that we have to deal with every time we get out with these birds, and nature is nature, and ultimately, once you wrap your head around the fact that you're doing a kindness by doing the quick dispatch in those regards and stuff, because obviously they're not going to get that quick end out in nature.
Right.
And once you wrap your head around all the different aspects of what you're going to have to deal with, because it is a hunting sport, it's, once again, it's another growing step. And I think that it's good though, from the other perspective and of having extra hurdles to jump, once you initially got into. I mean, granted, you were getting into it under some already, turbulent circumstances. It sounds like. I mean, cancer's obviously no joke, and getting into it. I mean, I could see where it really would have been very easy for you to be disheartened a little bit. It's just like, all right, I've got a new perspective on life. I'm getting into this. And then you get this bird that's like hard to deal with. And it's just like, well, screw it. I just, I could have just as easily just kind of been from the angle of, okay, well, maybe I made a mistake, So, I mean, did you ever think about that out of curiosity?
I definitely questioned if I was going to even be a good falconer. It made me question my abilities for sure. I don't know that maybe when I was learning how to dispatch, I was like, I'm not sure if this is for me. But I think I probably questioned my abilities more than if I made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
But again, I had a great sponsor, and Amy was always like, no, you're doing great.
So sometimes it's nice just to have that positive affirmation, it's always great to have extra guidance in everything we do, but sometimes all we really truly need is just someone just to be there and just to kind of be like, nah, you're fine. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Promise.
Exactly.
It's all right. But yeah, I mean, and kind of going back into initially how you found out about it in the first place, like, you all kind of got, your initial kind of introduction to falconry in general because of another business, kind of deal, right? I mean, like, you guys utilized a falconer initially for abatement, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we have vineyards, and so we want to do natural pest control. And so I've always loved raptors. I don't know who doesn't, but when I met Kaylin, she was doing our abatement, and when I met her out on the vineyard, I was just like, what? Like, mind blown that you could just get this license and be a falconer. And so, that was a couple years before I got diagnosed. And so I would go, she was so sweet. I would go and harass her all the time and just be nerd out and be annoying, ask questions and just want to be there all the time and see the birds. And she's trying to work, but she was always so nice to me and accommodating. And so I just kind of started seeing how she took care of them and how she did abatement, and just started learning about them hands-on there. And then when the diagnosis came, there's a lot of downtime. And so I would just read falconry books and read the test book and think about it. And then, so yes, that's how I got my introduction.
And whenever you initially were reading those books, I'm assuming you probably read through the California Hawking Club, a study guide and all that kind of stuff. The North American Falconry, Hunting Hawks, all that kind of good stuff. And
yes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, and that's kind of how I initially found out that, through the grapevine. I mean, as you've surely, you definitely know how small of a world this is. And, word kind of gets around, travels around and stuff. And, I've talked to Kaylin several times, but I've never actually gotten a chance to meet her in person yet. But I remember whenever she, had seen me, around, Justin and, getting a chance to go and see concerts and stuff and all that kind of stuff. She had mentioned that, she was getting a chance to, to go and work for you all and do all that kind of stuff for you guys. And so that was how I initially even found out that you even had an interest in any of it. And then of course, fast forward a couple years later, then we're it, God, that was Sonic Temple, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's when, yeah. And made the introduction and everything. And here we are. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's, I mean, it's a really unique, everybody kind of has their own little pathway into this, and you had a very unique one. It's very interesting that you were able to, I can imagine that there was a lot of days where you probably just weren't really feeling all that great. And, it's probably hard to find motivation to kind of get out and go fly your bird and stuff after all that, right?
Well, I think actually it kind of was my sanity. It keeps my sanity. I think it was probably a little bit more motivation because there's, a lot of, you don't realize going into treatment and stuff that they tell you like, oh, it's 4 months of chemo and then 3 months of, this or that. And you think, oh, okay, so I'll be done. But no, it's like 2 years of dragged out surgeries and this and that. And so I would have a surgery and then I'd be like, okay, I'll be up in a week out there, at least doing creance work, Mm-hmm. Also, I had a record. Music is also my other motivation. And so I'd have like record store day would be okay, I'm going to make it to record store day, even if I can just go in for 10 minutes or whatever. But so no, I think it was, even if I'm not feeling great, it was still a good motivation to get me up.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, everybody needs to find something, especially when they're going through that kind of stuff. And I just keep thinking back though, like, I've flown several different Harrises now. The only type of Harris I haven't flown at this point is a Passage. I still want to check that off the list, but man, dealing with a secondhand Harris, and especially one that was, having some issues, is like your first bird. That, everybody always talks about how there's this stigma that Harrises are always just automatically easy, and they're easy to deal with and all this kind of stuff or whatever. But I mean, even as, having some degree of experience under my belt, I mean, secondhand Harrises, the ones that I've flown, they didn't really have even much in the way of like behavioral issues per se, as much as they're just, to me, I think they're just harder bird to read, and they're already so ingrained in what they know. I mean, that's really a pretty tough bird in a lot of aspects to start off with as your first bird. I just keep thinking back to that. I mean, that had to be rough, man.
Yeah, I definitely had some meltdowns someday. Like when I finally got his feathers grown out and he looked so beautiful and we were ready, and then I would go out. The last time, I went out there and just shredded, and I was just total meltdown. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Out of curiosity, whenever you went down to Tucson, was it Dr. Tuttle that you?
Yeah,
Mr. Dr. J. Tuttle. Shout out to Dr. Tuttle.
Yes.
Yeah. I figured that was probably who you had talked to. Yeah, he's a good dude. It's, man, I can imagine that. So this bird that you're flying now is probably somewhat of a breath of fresh air, a little bit of a completely different experience for you, I bet, then, right?
Oh, it's so different. She is really fun. Her name's Autumn. So I caught her on the equinox, and my first time trapping, and she is so fun. She's already like knows the routine, really smart. She hasn't caught anything except no big game. She's snatched a dragonfly out of midair, and we caught a mouse. but
Yeah. Well, you'll get there. I mean,
yeah.
it's once again going back to the conversation, it's that we were having earlier. It's like as long as you just keep putting game, especially something on, putting game under something like a Harris, it'll happen eventually. And I know like I said, you've got so much going on and everything. I can imagine, with all the scheduling and stuff that you've got going on. It's been, you said you just went out of town hunting for your first time too, right?
Yeah, I took her out towards Joshua Tree area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really quick trip. So I really just wanted to try it. I'd always thought about taking my bird, but then I get nervous, like, oh, it's new terrain, and what if they just take off? Or so I just hadn't done it. And traveling with a bird seems like it would be a lot of work, but it was just a day trip. So she got a little bit of time, not a lot, but it was just nice to be in a different area and see what it's like and build my confidence that I can actually do a trip. And so I'll try it again.
Yeah, there's definitely a routine. Everybody develops their own little, I don't know, checklist and loading and unloading with a giant hood and packing around all that stuff too can be a challenge at times too. Nothing ever goes back in the same way you initially did the first time and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just keep at it. It'll like I said, as long as you just keep hunting her and stuff, it'll happen at some point here soon, I'm sure. But I mean, do you ever get out with get a chance to get out and hunt with many other falconers at all?
Yes, I try to go with Amy, my sponsor. I do have some friends here in Camp Verde, Rachel and Steven. They've been really nice to let me go with them. And so that's about it, really. I have trapped once in Apache Junction with Shannon. But yeah, again, because of my schedule, I don't have a lot of time to go meet other people. I was at our Cafe Grand opening. We did have some falconers that came from Kingman, and introduced themselves. And so hopefully, if I can get to the meet next month, I'll get to go out with them some.
Yep. No, I've got some decent falconers in Kingman. Just a few decent ones. No, they're good people out there. You have to tell them I said hey. Yeah, I mean it's like I said, you're still so early into this that you'll get the gamut. It'll be like I said, the more as time goes on and everything, I really think that it's always cool talking to falconers that are still young into it, because it makes me, just speaking for myself, it makes me remember kind of where my mind was. Because especially as a first year general, I fell into that trap of like, oh yeah, I'm a first year general, I want to get a Cooper's hawk, and all this kind of stuff, and just gotta go to the hardest thing, that anybody really ever talks about being the hardest thing ever, and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And you want to do all the things and all that kind of stuff. But at any rate, yeah, I mean, do you have any like goals or any other like things that you're wanting to, or any other types of or any species, I should say, that you want to eventually fly and stuff? I mean, you probably have a decent amount. I mean, you got a lot of land out there and stuff, but I mean, does your land that you have, does it have, any rabbit or quail or anything on it at all, really? Or
oh yeah, we have a lot of rabbits out here.
Nice.
And quail, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with taking baby steps. I might be the only falconer that's okay with baby steps. I'm sure that I will expand into something besides the Harris hawk I have.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have any specific goals. But you know what? I'm fine. Let's work with this one. Right now, I don't even take her out to the vineyards yet, Her recall is excellent, so I'm sure that's just a fear in my mind. But
Yeah, you got to get over that.
so yeah, I haven't really been flown her in our vineyards or anything yet. I just take her to the fields where I know, and we're slowly discovering new areas and exploring.
Use a T-perch?
I haven't with her yet, but I was just actually out with her yesterday, and I was like, I think I'll start taking the T-perch out. I also rigged up this little backpack thing with a perch back that I want to try with her. So
nice. Yeah, I mean that's the easiest thing to get over any kind of irrational fear that you might have. Just start off with the T-perch, and then they get so wed to that thing. It's just like, just kind of gently nudge them off that, let them go to trees, hunt around the trees, and as soon as you're going back away from the trees, they'll come right back to the T-perch and stay. There, if you've got that Harris going, good recall on weight, you're not going to get rid of it. And she won't get rid of you either. It'll be fine. Get out there and I mean, I understand though the some of the reticence probably. Like I said, you've had a different experience, especially getting into the world of Harris's and stuff that is a road that is especially starting off as a new apprentice with that type of bird. I can understand why it would potentially make you a little gun shy when it comes to different to a few different types of things. But as far as everything else goes though, that a big reason, I mean, we already kind of covered a lot of the things that, I really was wanting to cover with you, because your pathway into it and your mindset overall is a lot different than what a lot of falconers getting into the sport really kind of, end up taking, as far as a lot of that goes. Like and the fact that you're just content to take things slow. Like you're like literally, like myself included, you're literally one of the only falconers that I met that have just been like, okay, yeah, it's cool. I'm fine. Just, acknowledging that, there's, I'm just fine taking the, the slow baby step at it. Everybody else is just like, yeah, Cooper's hawk. Yeah. Whatever. And yeah, just goshawk or whatever and all this kind of stuff. And they want to do all the things and in their first like 5 years of being a falconer and stuff. So your story and how you kind of got acclimated to all this and kind of where you're at was unique. So I thought it would be really neat to kind of get a different perspective on those things and everything else. But I mean, aside from the family and business and everything else, I mean, I know you've got, tour schedules occasionally that you've got to juggle and all that kind of stuff too. I mean, I'm sure that it's nice at least knowing that you don't have to go that far to have a lot of good places to hunt. Also, that's not something that a lot of people have,
Yeah. Yeah. It when my husband's on tour, it does definitely get a little harder to hunt. I'm lucky that I have really good friends that are willing to just let me drop my kid off for a couple hours, so I can get out in the field. But yeah, definitely, it's harder, and you make the time. You find a way to make the time when you love something. So, and my daughter does not want to go with me in the field. So, not yet.
Yeah, I've got you'd think that, my kids, sometimes you'd think that it was like, I don't know, basically the equivalent of taking a switch and just whipping the crap out of them or something, and just like, it's like scalded dog or something treatment, having to, have him come out with his old man in the field sometime. He came out, I think, my kid's 16 now, and he came out with me for the 4th time total, I think, a few weeks ago. And that was the day that we got the goose. He got to see me bust my ass a few times. And I think that he found that more entertaining than actually, getting catching the goose and all that kind of stuff. But I always like getting a particular, fond memory, hunting story, any kind of experience that you had with, like I said, I know you've been in this a relatively short amount of time and everything, but is there any particular hunting experience, story, fond memory with one of the birds that you have flown so far that you'd like to, or that you could share?
Yes, and this would actually double for your follies. Loki's first catch, well, first and only bunny catch. I really didn't have experience on my own. I've been with, Amy when we caught something, and so I've never had to do the full trade-off and all that. And so I let him feed on it, and it was so small. It was a baby, so he was able to fly away with it. And so I spent at least the next couple of hours crawling through cactus and just basically chasing him around and calling Amy, like, what do I do now? Yes, so that's one of my fond memories. And I probably still have some cactus in my legs that I'm pulling out once in a while. But that was a really good experience. And I feel like for my first catch and also being such a disaster, I'll never forget it. But I did get the bird home, and that is in the end, it's a win, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the old cliche falconry saying, anytime you go home with a bird in a box, it's a good day, no matter what the circumstances. But especially whenever you've got a bunny, well, I guess at least part of a bunny in your bag, at least. Yeah. It makes it that much more worth it. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I don't envy you. I've been poked by several cacti in my time, and it's never fun at all. And as far as, remind me again too, you whenever you switched birds, did you have any better experience or better luck with the second bird that you flew?
The one that I borrowed?
Yeah.
Echo?
Yeah.
Yes, she was great. I mean, actually, Autumn is very much like her. Younger, of course, and not as seasoned, but I didn't have any problems with that bird. That one, Echo, was more just I couldn't find much game for her.
Yeah. Well, like I said, hopefully you'll find your groove, continue to find your groove more as the season goes on, this time around, and with this other passage bird too. You ever have any goals to fly a cast?
I think that would be really cool. I just want to make sure that I feel pretty confident with one bird before.
Yeah. No, it sounds like you've got some like prior PTSD to work through a little bit before. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, I actually this new Harris that I'm flying this season, I actually flew her in a cast for the first time this past weekend, actually at our meet that we host every year, and here where I live, and my buddy's bird, thankfully, he's a pretty seasoned male, and he's been tagged by like 3 or 4 different females that he's flown with, previously. So he's like kind of always got, just kind of always looking over his shoulder a little bit, just waiting for the, something to come at him. But they got along pretty well. But me and my buddy were both just kind of like, whatever. We were waiting for it. We were kind of expecting it, but we were kind of surprised when it didn't happen. Actually, it actually went pretty well. So I get it. I mean, it's it's all stuff that you got to work through. You'll get there. It's all good.
I did actually take Loki out once with a few other Harrises, but one of the females was acting up, and so we didn't get to do a lot. It was kind of a short little hunt, but so I guess I have tried it one time in a cast.
Yeah. It's a different experience. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on the fence as to whether or not to possibly do that next year or not, but I've had my own, special bits of learning this season, like flying a a secondhand goshawk for the first time and just started flying that bird this past weekend. And that's been a whole other learning curve. So been right there with you, and 10 years into it. And I'm still, going through a lot of firsts also. So, and those never stop coming, but, well, I mean, and out of curiosity too, I mean, I always like to, before wrapping and stuff, I always like to, get a, it seems like it doesn't matter, if you're fresh, new into things, or if you've been a falconer for multiple decades or whatever. I mean, everybody always has some kind of sentiment, thought, or, piece of advice or something that's worthy of kind of passing along to people. So, I mean, do you have anything that, kind of fits that bill? I mean, is there any thought or sentiment that you want to pass on?
I guess just, I feel like a lot of people, at least because I'm so new, they always say like how much they would want to be in. They want to get into falconry, but they're worried about the time that it takes. And I guess it's just that you'll make the time, I don't have any like super words of wisdom, but if you really want to do falconry, you'll make the time, you'll find it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Just like about pretty much anything else in life where there's a will, there's a way. If you want to make the time, if you don't, if there's always like there's some excuses that are reasons that are very valid, like cancer, for example, why you might want to put off getting into something or whatever. But there's a lot of, I mean, myself included, we've all been guilty of it. There's always been things that we put off doing, and really internally, it's always because at the time, at least, we really just didn't want to do it bad enough.
Yeah.
And, I think that this kind of fits the bill too. But at the same time, like you said, if you don't have the time to invest, it's kind of pointless to, to even try, to get into it too.
That's true.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, I hope that eventually, we'll get a chance to, paths will cross again and stuff, and get a chance to get out and go hunting and everything. It's like I said, there's so many people that all across the country and even the world that, I'd love to be able to get out and hunt with sometime. And I mean, hopefully, like I said, down the road, I don't know when. I mean, there was like a 20-year, almost exactly to the year, like a 20-year gap between whenever I was in Arizona, for the first time, and then the next time. So I'm not sure when I'll ever pass through there again, but I would love to, come out and, check the place out and stuff too. I've me and my dad, actually, ironically enough, we're just talking the other day about wanting to try some of you guys' wine and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. I'll have to order some from it. Do you guys ship?
We do.
I figured you guys did, but
yeah, not to every state, but
check and see if Indiana's on the list. I'd like to order some and give it a shot and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, and I'm not normally a big wine guy. Usually I'm more of a rum guy, but I always like trying new stuff and everything. But hopefully, if you ever get a chance to start traveling more and everything, figure something out. It'd be fun to get together and go hawking, and throw a shout out, I guess, to your businesses and stuff too, just so people are aware that.
Oh yeah, if you're ever in northern Arizona, we have Queen Bee Vinyl Cafe, which is in Cottonwood, Caduceus Cellars in Jerome, Merkin Vineyards in Trattoria, and our Verde Valley Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 4-8 Fried Chicken, and 4-8 Wineworks, also in Cottonwood.
Is that it?
Thank you. That's it. For now.
That's all for now.
I probably forgot something, but thank you for having me, and I hope that we can meet up sometime.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'll let you know whenever. I never know where I'm going to be at any given time. It seems like, although I am at least working a full-time job again, not doing the travel stuff as far as work goes near as much anymore. But I never know where the podcast especially is going to take me and everything. You need to, like you were mentioning the other day, you need to try and make it to an AFA meet or something sometime. Get out. Yeah,
I'm gonna try for next year, 2025.
I think it's in Oklahoma next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I think they're actually having it a little bit earlier next year too. I think it's in like November or something, earlier November next year. I have to double check, but, well, like I said, thank you again for taking the time, as with that big, long scroll of things that take up your time. I appreciate it. I know there's probably some things that we could touch on that we didn't, whatever, but that's what part twos are for. So, but thank you again. And like I said, it was really nice getting a chance to hear about, some of the things that you kind of had to jump through, some of the hurdles and hoops and everything. And like I said, it's really interesting getting a chance to hear about the different things that people have to, deal with, on the daily. Everybody's got different stuff. So thanks again, and stay on here for just a couple of minutes. I got to let these files upload and everything. But like I said, thanks again for your time.
Okay, thank you. I'll mail you some wine.
Please.